let's teleport entities around the world using our tuner item. Hello everyone, this is Ali Reza. Welcome to the Mentor Code Lab. Today we will use our tuner item to teleport entities around the world. However, keep in mind that in future we will have to come back to this class and tweak the code around a little bit because things has changed and people in Fabric Discord assume that the changes will continue, and I agree with them. Right now we have a shortcut of handling what we need to do, but in future it may change, and there is a high chance that it will change and it comes back and bites us. Right now we will make things work, but when we learn about records and especially about codec, then we will come back to this class and change things around again. However, for the first pass, we want to make this item functional. Now, for making entities teleport around the world, we have to somehow keep track on where we are teleporting the entities. Basically, we want to save some information on the item itself. Now, before in version 1.20.4 and below that, we had something called NBT data. NBT data was the way Mojang was using for serializing the information and keeping those information on hard drives. From recent versions, Mojang started using codecs more and more. And in version 1.20.6, actually I think it's 20.5, a huge change happened on item and item stack. And that is they dropped using of NBT data directly on items. They started using data components, and for time being, they allow to convert NBT to data components and save them and retrieve them. However, there is a high chance that in future, we don't know when, but there is a possibility that in future, they will completely drop NBT serialization. Because let's face it, Mojang started using JSONs and JSONs for models, then JSONs for tags, and recently he started adding codecs almost in every corner of Minecraft. Codecs are the way for serializing and deserializing info. We will come back to that later. But taking a look at Mojang's approach, it looks like they will drop NBT in future and start utilizing JSON more and more. And even if they will continue using NBT, the usage will be very limited in special cases. So right now, we will write our code in a way that it will use NBT and convert it to component data and retrieve it back. However, in future, when we learned about codecs and how we can use and generate our own custom component data, we will come back to this class and we will tweak it in such a way that we will use component data, making sure that in future, if Mojang, for whatever reason, dropped anything related to NBT, it won't cause any problems for us in long run. But as I said, for time being, we just make the function work and using an intermediate way of transferring our code to our future. We want to somehow store the coordinates of a block that we want the teleportation to happen there. We will store that data when we are using this item on a block. Here, we say we want a nullable, capital N, and import the class from JetBrain annotations. So we want a nullable, we call it var data equals to. The context that we had, we get the stack. This is the item in hand. Dot get component, get, and as you see, it asks for a data component. So we say data component types dot custom data. Now, if we middle mouse click on this custom data, this is the new way that the data is being stored on items, not the NBTs. As you see, NBT component is dropped and became component types. And this is the custom data. Right now we have it, but in future it looks like it will be dropped, because if you look, Minecraft started adding more and more data component types. And in future we will come back to this class and learn from it. Basically, we will register our own component data type. Don't worry, it looks scary right now. It looks codecs and packet codecs. It looks scary. It's not as scary as it looks. We will come back to this later. However, right now, we learned that custom data is working with NBT. Now that we are trying to get the data from our item, remember, it's nullable. So right now we check if data does not equal to null, means that we have some data there. We just return the usage. If we don't have any data, this is where we start using our code. So we want to get the block pose of the block that we clicked on. It's context dot get block pose. Then we want to get the player. So player entity, we call it player, equals to context dot get player. Now that we have both of them, we want to check that player is not null because it's nullable. So if player does not equal to null, that is when everything will happen. Now here we want to check if the player is sneaking or not. So we say if not player dot is sneaking. If we are sneaking, we are ignoring the usage on block completely. So if we are not sneaking and we are clicking on a block and we don't have any information on our tool, this is where we want to store the information and show something to the player. From previous videos, we know that when we are dealing with logic, we want to be on the server side. So if context dot get word dot is client. If we are not client, we want to do something. Otherwise, if we are on the client side, we want to do something else. On the server side, we want to make an NBT component. We call it NBT equals to new NBT compound. Sorry, not component. So NBT compound, NBT equals new NBT compound. Then NBT dot put. We want to put something. We will create a key UIO dot tuner dot. We want to set the position. We want to store the block pose into NBT. Thankfully, we have NBT helper dot from block pose, and we already have the block position that we want to. Then we say NBT dot put string. We want to store something. UIO tuner dimension. This is the dimension that the player is in it. Basically, we want to make sure to know if the block we are clicking on it is in overworld, end, or nether, or any custom dimension. Because we don't want to teleport entities between dimensions. I highly recommend against doing something like that. It is not breaking the game, but it can mess around the experience of playing a game. For example, let's say that we are teleporting a ghast into overboard. Of course, I had seen a video, someone had done something like that, but he had to deal with minecarts, getting the ghast into the minecart, making sure that he was not aggroed, then using the minecart, teleporting the minecart into the overboard, moving it to top of a building and then destroying the minecart. And in all that process, he was making sure that the ghast was not seeing him to get aggro. Now think about our tuner. You click on the block in overboard, you go into nether and just click on a ghast and bam, the ghast is teleported to the overboard. I think it's really breaking the game experience right there, because we are removing a very big challenge there. But the main job of something like this item is to teleport villagers around, animals like cow, like, I don't know, chickens, pigs, stuff like that. So we want to prevent between dimensional teleports of entities. And because of that, we have to track this dimension. Now, how do we get the dimension? We have the player. we get the word, and when we have the word, we can get the registry key, and from that we get the value. You see, this is the identifier now, and simply convert it to string. This is the name of the board inside game registry. Now that we have that, we say nbt component equals to nbt component dot of, and you notice that it asks for a compound. Well, we have the compound named nbt. Now that we have the component, finally we say context dot get stack, so we get the item. This is the new way of putting data on top of any item stack. Remember, with get, we got the data. With set, we are setting the data. So data component types dot custom data, because we are using components and we are sending it the component on the item. As I said, this is a temporary solution in my eyes and many people in Fabric Discord channel, because later there is a chance that this conversion and this component type can be dropped by Minecraft in future. So this is a temporary solution. Don't forget it. But for people that has a mod that is using NBTs and putting these NBT data on the items, this is a temp solution that will convert that NBT to the component types and store them. Remember, what we are doing right now can be extended toward, for example, item filters in any tech mod. They are storing information on an item named filter. Those mods have something coming for them in future. Now, when we are on the client side, we just want to put something in the chat. So I will say dimension equals to, again, I want to get this player's dimension string. After that, we say dimension equals to dimension dot substring dimension dot index of column. So basically we are dropping Minecraft column by doing this. And we go +1 because we want to drop the column itself. So basically right now we had something like Minecraft column something, and we dropped Minecraft column. Now we are replacing the underline with the space. So basically, if we had something like, I don't know, over underline word, it will become over space word. And that's the name. So finally, I will make a method for myself, output coordinates to chat, and this is the position, this is the dimension, and this is the player. Now, this can be a method inside the same class, but my player teleporter may use it. But let's keep it per item itself, because why not? Private void, we want this. The first parameter is a blog post position. The second one is dimension as a string. The third one is player entity player. Here we say player dot send message. We already had seen it before. Now here we want it translatable, but take note that in our reference we have a method called translate, and it adds our mod ID dot key, and we are just sending the key and parameters. So here we say translate, and yes, please import the static for our reference. The key shouldn't have the mod ID, but it should be tuner.tooltip. And the parameters will be pause.getX, comma, pause.getY, pause.getZ. These are the three parameters, and then the dimension name. After the first parenthesis, we want to make sure that the overlay is false. Now, we have to add this into our JSON for our translation. So at the end of the JSON file, I will go and put a blank space and I will type this. But remember, our translate will add our mod ID in front. And then the value is this, bound to position space colon space parentheses. Inside parentheses, we use %d, %d, %d dash %d. Basically, when we are sending parameters, each parameter will replace one of these %ds in order that we are sending them. Okay, that's our message. And that is how we bound our item to somewhere in the world. Now that we have that, we can move forward. When we are using the item, we want to drop the info because already we bound our item to a coordinate, but sometimes we want to clear it. So we say, if not, here we have the word directly that is client. If we are not on the client side, we want to do the logical thing. Thankfully, we have this data once, we just copy it, and here we paste it. So we get the data, but here instead of context, we say user, and instead of get stack, we have get stack in hand, and we have the hand. Okay, we get the component. After that, we say if user dot is sneaking this time, and data does not equal to null. So we are sneaking and we have some data on the item. We say user dot get stack in hand, the hand dot set data component types dot custom data, and we send in null. Basically, now we are making the data to be null. Remember, the custom data is a nullable type. Why we did make it null? Because you know that some items has this purple glint. Here we can use it. So we have the stack, we just copy this thing, but instead of all of this, we just send in the stack. We want the custom data. Now we return if the data does not equal to null. Remember, it's nullable. So if we don't have any data, we don't want the glint. If there is some data, so data is not null, we will have that purplish glint that we see on enchanted items. And that is how we can add that glint into any item. So if we have some data stored, the item will have the glint. So far, so good. We added information, we cleared the information. Now we want to use that information. For using the information, we have this stack itself. So we use this line and we get the data directly from the stack itself. Now we want to make sure that we are not teleporting some special things. For example, if the entity is player, we don't want to teleport players around. If the data equals to null for whatever reason, because we can click on entities with an item that doesn't have data. And finally, if entity.getType.isIn, remember in previous video, we had this tuner blacklist reference somewhere. What did I name it? Tuner blacklist. Okay. So we had this tag. Now we are using that tag. And remember, we added Ender Dragon. So we can't teleport Ender Dragon around even inside the end. So if it's player, if we don't have any info, or if we are blacklisted for the entity, we are returning action result dot fail. We can't use the item on top of that. Finally, we say if not player, we call it user. If not user dot is sneaking. If we are not sneaking, that is when we want to teleport entity. Why we are not sneaking? Because remember, use will happen whenever we are clicking on entities, and here we are saying if we are sneaking, clear the data. So we can just teleport when we are not sneaking around. We say nbt compound, nbt equals to data dot copy nbt. So we retrieve the nbt from there. Lock pose, we call it pose, equals to nbt helper dot to block pose from nbt and the key. Now the key is the same key that we saved the info. Use copy paste here so that you won't have any typos. And finally, we use get to get the resulted blog post. Now it says that it's option.get without present check, and it says there is no short way of handling it. However, it's really not important in Minecraft, so I will just disable the inspection. Now that we have these info, we want to be on the proper side. If not, we don't have the word, so user.getWord.is client. If we are not on the client, what we do is now we want to say var dimension equals to nbt.getString, and the string key is the same key that we used here. So again, copy and paste. And now that we have the string, we can compare them. So we say var user dimension equals to user.getWord dot get registry key dot get value dot toString. Same deal that we had before. Now we say if the dimension equals ignore case the user dimension. Basically, we are comparing two strings, ignoring the upper and lower cases there. If they are equal to each other, then we say entity dot teleport pose dot get x, pose dot get y, pose dot get z. Now that we teleported our entity, here is something interesting. We say entity dot refresh position after teleport. If we don't do this, for some reason, the entity will ignore being teleported. And here is critical to add 1 to y so that we move entity 1 block higher than the ground, else entities will stuck in the block. And finally, we return action result dot success. Here we are successful and everything is finished. If we come out of this if, means that for whatever reason, the dimensions are not equal to each other, or for whatever reason, we are not able to teleport. So we say action result dot fail. Here we fail. Remember, we are doing this on server side. We can't give any chat info on the server side. Now, if we hit it here, means that we didn't return it in here, or we are on the client side. So on the client side, we start getting these info again. I will just copy paste it from my notes. Basically, the dimension is this dimension, uio.tuner.dimension. And then we get the user dimension. We drop the Minecraft column and we just move underline and become a space on this dimension itself. Okay. Now we say if dimension that we stored on the item dot equals ignore case with the user dimension. If that's the case, we know that we are clicking on an entity in the same dimension that we want the teleportation happen on the server side. So on the client side, we send a message using translate, and the key will be tuner.teleported. The params is pose.getx, pose.gety, pose.getz. And maybe the dimension name that we are using in the replacing and the substringing. Finally, we return action result dot success. We successfully teleported something somewhere. If we hit it here, means that the dimensions are not equal to each other. So we hit an else. And why did I use else? Because I want to make sure that I show the message only when this check is failed. And I will copy this, I will paste, success will become fail, and tuner dot error message. And here we are just sending in the dimension name as the param. The last piece of information that I forgot is that here I need the overlay both here and here. Okay, finally, we have to add these two entries to our translatable JSON. So I will duplicate these, comma, comma. The first one is this teleported, and the second one is the error, tuner.error. For the teleported, we will say teleported to, and again, the rest is the same, but here we will remove all of this. We say wrong dimension, comma, your tuner bound to %d. And that's it. Finally, we are ready to test this whole thing inside the game, but we have something that we want to add to the item. When we have the item inside the inventory and we move our mouse on the item, sometimes we see some information pop up, and that is the tooltip. So here we want to create our own tooltip. Now we have the stack, so we can get the data directly from stack. We check if the data does not equal to null, means that we had some data. Now we can continue forward. we get the NBT and block pose. After that, we say var dimension equals to nbt.getString. Actually, I had it somewhere instead of typing it. Here we go. And finally, we want to say var dimension name equals to this dimension dot substring and stuff like that here. Just bunch of copy pasting here. And at last, we say tooltip dot add translate, and we have some entry here. Tuner dot tooltip comma pose dot get x comma pose dot get y comma pose dot get z comma dimension name. And if you notice, we already used this tooltip somewhere, if I remember correctly. When we are just putting to the chat, we were using that tuner.tooltip. Here we are using the same translatable from our translate and showing it now as a tooltip. And that's the whole thing. Let's run the game and see it in action inside the game because we don't have anything else to do right now. Until the game come up, I will add some information as to do on top of the class for future, and that is just to use data component type in future. That's a note for myself. It won't happen anytime soon. It will happen in future when we have custom data component types created using codecs. Now we have this player teleporter. I'm not gonna code it right now. Basically, it's the same concept. We just have to tweak things because, well, now we are teleporting ourselves, not entities, and it can work between dimensions. For time being, I will ignore it. You can do it as a homework if you want, but in future, we will come back and write the code for player teleporter. Now we have our tuner. Let's check the functionality in the game and see if it works. So basically, right now, if I move my mouse on the item, I just see the name. And if I move forward without sneaking, right-clicking, I see the glint on the item in my hand and inventory. And if I move my mouse, it says now bound to position blah dash overboard. Okay, let's see if I can click on the pig and get him teleported. Right-click and bam, it teleported. Now shift right-click, it will clean. By the way, we got that message for teleportation. And again, click, bound, click, and the cow is teleported. So now if I click, I can't bound. So I just have to clean, then click, and villagers are a bit of a problem, isn't it? We can't teleport villages as they are. Why? Well, because villagers are a little bit of special. In case of villages, when we are right-clicking, we are trying to trade with the villager. So if I sneak and right-click or right-click, we can't do anything with the villager. Let's take a look at the class and see if we can do anything. When we are using an entity, we are checking if we are not sneaking. If I change this behavior, would it change anything? It won't. So basically, no matter if you're sneaking or not, whenever you click a villager, the game will attempt to make the trade screen shown up for the villager. And if the villager has no occupation, then it won't do anything. To demonstrate that, let's get something for the villager that makes him have an occupation. For example, let's make him a librarian. Will this work like that? Come on, don't do this. Okay, god damn it. Now, there we go. So see, if I click on him, it becomes librarian and it is showing the trading interface. If I shift right click, the same thing happens. So basically, somehow we need to make sure that the villager will ignore our right click. Come on, come here. Oh, okay. Then do this. So the villager will ignore our right click for trading and do the teleportation. To do this, we have to attack events. But right now, I have lots of things to cover before we go for the events. For time being, we know that other entities are being teleported. The only exception is villagers because, yes, we have to somehow bypass this screen then we have tuner in hand, and that is related to events. Right now, I want to do other things before attacking the events, although it's not as hard as you think. Actually, we are just, attacking an event, and we are checking if the item in hand is the tuner and if the entity that we are clicking on is the villager type, and then do other stuff there. Basically, we will do the teleportation there for the villages. But right now, without events, we can't teleport villagers around. Other than villagers, entities are fine. If you like these videos, please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and turn on that bell so that when I publish a new video, you will get informed. Have fun, everyone. Bye.